This episode of the Just John podcast is brought to you by the one guy that actually cares if Hillary Clinton is wearing a wig or not. What up, homies? Coming to you pre-recorded from my podcast studio. This is the Just John podcast, a weekly show where I talk about whatever the hell I want. And I'm your host, John Medina. On this episode of the Just John podcast, I'm going to talk about how teaching parents to text can be funny, Simon Pegg being in the news, the fact that words aren't words anymore, Facebook actually cares about you, and a whole lot more. So let me take you back about 5 or 6 years ago. My dad had just gotten his first full real cell phone, I guess you want to call it, and he wanted to learn how to text. So I kind of, showed him how to text, and he got the general idea of it. Now, this was like T9 style or iTap, whatever you want to call it. It was before smartphones were really big. He didn't have a BlackBerry. He just had, I think he had a Razor, flip phone. And so he got the general idea of it, and I had, what was I doing? I don't know. I think I was at a friend's house, and I had gotten a message from him, and I opened up the message, and he was texting. I don't remember what he was texting me exactly, but I remember that the message looked really weird. And at the very end of the message, he put, "I can't remember how to type a space, so I'm putting a dot in between every word." So the whole message was like, "Hello, dot, son, dot, blah, 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 dot, blah, dot, blah, dot, blah." And I think everybody kind of has their I taught my friend or my parent or my aunt or whoever how to text, and everybody has kind of an entertaining story about it. So if you have an entertaining story about teaching somebody to text, please let me know. Tweet it to me, DM, whatever. You can email me and share some of your funny stories with me. I would love that, and I would love to talk about it on the show. Simon Pegg of Shaun of the Dead fame, he's in the news. So one, he's involved with Star Trek, but it's common knowledge now that he's like a mega Star Wars fan. Like, he is a huge Star Wars fan, and he's in The Force Awakens and probably has some kind of credits on helping for the other films and different stuff like that, right? And he came out with, in an interview, I don't remember who the interview was for, but he has an opinion about Star Wars, right? Well, we all do. And people are a little upset about his opinion. So essentially what he's saying is that he loves Star Wars. Well, at least the original trilogy. He absolutely despises the prequels, which a lot of people do. Maybe it's because I'm younger, but I understand that the prequels aren't maybe up to the caliber of the original trilogy, but they're still decent. But I still enjoy the movies, and maybe it's because when the first prequel came out, I was like 8 years old. And so it still has that, I watched it as a child and it'll always be part of my childhood nostalgia factor to it, which you could argue is why a lot of people think that the original trilogy is good and think that the prequels are bad, is because they were children when they watched the original trilogy and they were adults when they watched the prequels. And so they saw them from a different standpoint, from an adult standpoint, from a mature standpoint. But anyway, back to the story. So in his interview, he basically said that George Lucas ruined the prequels and it was almost like he killed his own baby. Now, that's a little harsh, but he deserves to have an opinion. That doesn't mean he loves Star Wars any less, and people are just so mad about it. I mean, they're sitting here, it got so bad that they actually created a petition on change.org to ban Simon Pegg from anything Star Wars related. That's just ridiculous. Just because he's famous and just because he's working on Star Wars doesn't mean that he's not entitled to his own opinion about things that have been done in the past or even things that are being done now. I mean, he's not going to go out and say, I don't agree with what JJ did on this aspect because that's bad business. But that doesn't mean he can't have an opinion about something that was made a decade ago. Another thing that happened this week is Oxford, the dictionary organization, I guess you could call it, came out with their words that they're adding to the dictionary, their list of words that they're adding to the dictionary, and then every year they come out with a word of the year. Well, this year their word of the year was the emoji face with tears of joy. This confuses me. I understand that the dictionaries, what they need to do, or what they've done forever, is take new words that have been created and assign them their definitions and put them into the dictionary. That's the whole point of a dictionary. But it's about words. An emoji is not a word. It's like a pictogram, okay? It's like you're back in Egypt, right? And so that's the confusing part about it to me. I mean, like, if they want to start cataloging emojis and what they mean and their definitions and how they're used when you to express feelings or other words or concerns or whatever, they need to come out with a separate dictionary that's a pictogram dictionary, right? They can put all the emojis in there, and as we develop more emojis, they can put them in there as well. And most of them are going to be simple definitions, like the taco emoji. It's going to be like, to represent a taco. Okay, but that's what you need to do. You don't need to fill the dictionary that's about words with something that's not words. Now, one of the words that they did add that I thought was pretty funny was lumbersexual. Now, I'm actually going to Google search lumbersexual and see if I can get the official definition and not just the Urban Dictionary definition. Let's see here. I don't think they have it listed yet, but the unofficial definition, which is probably pretty similar to what the official definition is going to be, is a metrosexual who has the need to hold on to some outdoor-based ruggedness, thus opting to keep a finely trimmed beard. Okay, let's just try to use that in a sentence. Where's the examples? Oh, pages and pages of definitions. No examples. Whatever. Oh, here we go. Dale's a lumbersexual. He doesn't care who give him his wood, long as he gets to share the timber. Wait, that can't be right. Oh, that definition is a man who humps anyone who gives him wood. That's not right. Okay. Here's the definition for the original one that I read. George Michael is a total lumbersexual man. Yeah, man, so is Don Johnson. Okay, whatever. Moving on from the depressing state of our society. Oh, are the taxi companies pissed over Uber? Now, we've been hearing about this for a while. They're trying to sue Uber out of existence and trying to get cities to ban Uber, and that hasn't worked very well. Uber still is able to grab massive amounts of the market, and so the taxi companies are actually taking the fight to the cities themselves now. A bunch of taxi companies are suing New York City because they said that the rules that they impose on Uber are not as stringent as the rules that they impose on the taxi companies, and the taxi companies are mad because they're losing business. All I have to say about that is, okay, sure, there are probably a few rules that Uber's been able to sidestep because they're not actually defined as a taxi company, they're defined as a ride-share company, right? But the thing about it is, we live in a free market society. The government is not supposed to protect businesses. Now, granted, I know that they do protect certain businesses like utility companies, but that's based on the belief that if the utility companies were free market, the prices would be extremely high because they wouldn't be able to, okay, so you have one company that services 15,000 people, and that's the whole town, right? If you have a second company come in, even if they split it right down the middle, their prices are going to have to be higher to cover the costs because they don't have as much revenue coming in. So that's the purpose of doing it for that. They don't need to do that for taxi companies. The taxi companies can take the free market for its full ride, okay? And so these taxi companies need to compete. They need to come up with a strategy and a plan to compete with Uber, not just try to settle it in a courtroom. It's getting ridiculous. It's almost as bad as when we had 2, 3, 4 years of patent lawsuits where you heard a new lawsuit between Google or Apple or who at Microsoft or whoever every day. That doesn't help the economy. It hinders it. It doesn't help progress. It hinders it. So these taxi companies need to just find a new business strategy. That's how every company for sure the United States, but now most of the free world, that's how companies survive. They compete. They say, okay, this is how they're doing it. This is how we're going to create this good or service that is more beneficial to our customers. And even if they have to pay a premium price, they're going to do it because they like what we're doing better than what the cheaper company is doing. And if anybody for a second thinks that that may not be the way that it works, look at Apple, for example. You're looking at the most wealthiest company in the world. Their stuff is not cheap. You can go buy a PC laptop for $500 that has the equivalent specs of an Apple PC or a Mac that's going to cost you $1,000 or more. So why do people keep buying it? They like the quality. They like the spin that Apple puts on it. They like for whatever reason, they like it more than the cheaper alternatives. And so they vote for that product and say, I like your product. I'm going to vote for it with my dollars. That's how an economy works, right? You make a product. If people like it, they essentially vote for it with their money. And then you say, okay, people like this, and you stay in business. So Uber came in and said, this is how we're going to do it. This is what it's going to cost, and this is the atmosphere it's going to be. And people said, oh, that's awesome. I'm going to vote for it with my money. And the taxi companies are saying, oh, that's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair because we're losing money. So what they need to do is they need to reevaluate their business strategy so that people will start going back to the taxi companies. So Facebook tested its safe check feature in Paris when the attack happened. They turned on this safety check feature. So what the safety check feature is when they turn it on and you're in that area, it'll say, please check in and let your friends know that you're okay. And so you hit the little check in button, and then it will alert everybody that you have on Facebook, and it'll say, this person is safe. And I think that's great because, I don't have any family or friends, personal friends that live in Paris. But if I did, that would make my life a lot easier. And it just, one of the biggest things is when something like this happens, everybody panics that knows somebody in Paris because they're like, oh my gosh, are they okay? And they flood the phone lines and they flood everything. And then it gets so congested that people that need help aren't able to access that help because the networks are so just bogged down from everything. And so what the safety check feature does is it allows you to tell your friends and family that you're okay without bogging down the system so that the people that aren't okay that need help can get it. And I think it's awesome. It shows that even though Facebook uses all of its users to generate revenue, because it does, that's why it's free. You don't pay for it because they use your information to make their money, and that keeps it free. But it's nice to know that underneath all of that, they do still have that human element there, that they actually do care about your safety and you being able to get in contact with people saying that you're safe. One of the biggest problems that I had with the aftermath of the release of this safety feature is that people were mad that Facebook didn't use it in Beirut and Baghdad and a couple of the other places that bad things had happened within the same week. Now, Facebook came out with essentially their reasoning behind it. They said, one, it had never been tested before, and they had to start it sometime, so they picked Paris to test it in. And people were crying, oh, that's not right, that's not right. And one of the other things was that it's not, right now, at its current status, it's not able to handle an area that's in the middle of a war, I guess essentially you could say, because when you turn on the safety check, you check in, it says you're safe, and it does, that safety doesn't expire. Once everything is cleared up, they'll turn the safety off, and then if something happens again down the road, they'll turn it back on, and then it'll start over. But during that period that it's on, there's no way to reset. And so the problem is, when you're in an area that's constantly in the midst of, just horrible things happening, it's really hard, because you could say, okay, so say that Monday something happens, they turn on Facebook safety check, you say, I'm fine. They leave it on because it's still the event, but Tuesday something else happens. They can't reset it because that's not how the system's built to work at this point, and you can't re-say I'm safe again, so people don't know. So it's not quite fine-tuned to that yet, and that's why they have to test it, right? They have to test it in the field, see how it works, and then they will tweak it and make it better, and then the next time that it's needed, it will be a lot better. Now, they did actually end up using it again later, this last week in Nigeria, so they're kind of getting it rolled out now that they've been able to test it initially. And so we'll probably see a lot more of that happening, which I think, as I said before, I think that's just great. I mean, it was developed for natural disasters, so it wasn't even actually created with this in mind. It just happens to be something that it can be useful for. Facebook also rolled out another update on Thursday that... It's really kind of funny. They'll now let you hide like all the photos that you're tagged in and statuses that you're tagged in and stuff. Essentially all of the memories of your exes. So now when you break up with somebody and you go into Facebook and you change your relationship status, it will ask you how much of their information you want to see, how much of your information you want to allow them to see, and so on and so forth. Now, before you could kind of do this by blocking them, deleting them as a friend and stuff, but there were still residual things, like the pictures would still show up with you both tagged in them and stuff like that. And this will prevent that from happening. So now, when you go use Breakup Shop, which is a new startup that will text, email, call, send a letter, or send a gift basket to break up with somebody for you, you can hide all that crap on Facebook. But let's talk about this Breakup Shop real quick for a second. So for the price ranges from $10 to $29. You can have them send a text to the person breaking up, send them an email, call them on the phone, send them a letter in the mail, or a gift basket. I think one comes with Call of Duty, and then one comes with the Notebook. So, if you're too lazy or too scared to break up with your significant other, you can now, for simply for $30 or $10, whichever, you can hire this company to break up with them for you. People scream that social media distances us from human connection, right? That it stops us from having the human element, and it desensitizes us, essentially. And while I could agree with it on certain aspects, there's a lot of aspects that it doesn't. I mean, I talk to family and friends that I would probably never talk to if I didn't have them on Facebook, strictly because it's easy. I mean, I don't have to plan a time or this or that. I can just shoot them a message on Facebook and they can reply when they've got time, and we can go back and forth like that. And so I think that it helps in that aspect, but certain things like breaking up with your significant other should probably not be done by a company, probably should be done by you. But who am I to give relationship advice, I guess? Okay, so something really cool if you're into astronomy and different planets and space and stuff, and as you get to know me more through this podcast and some of the other content that I produce, you're gonna just start to realize that I love space. I mean, everything about it. And I know that real space may not necessarily be as wham bam thank you ma'am as it is in the movies, but it's mind-boggling. I mean, trying to understand some of the concepts of how physics on a universal scale works can just, I mean, you can stay awake for hours just trying to wrap your mind around it. But anyways, I digress on that. So scientists have discovered a new planet that's being made. It's about 450 light years from Earth. You can go online and you can search new planet being formed, and I'm sure it'll be the top thing that comes up. There's a couple different articles. The Verge did an article, and so you can go on there and you can see the pictures of it. And it's really cool because you can see the way that they found it is that there's this special wavelength of light that planets and stars give off when they're being formed because it's superheated, and that was the way that they found it. And it looks like it's going to be developing a whole solar system, but they could only see certain planets because of the way that the light wavelengths and stuff were. And I mean, that's a really, really dumbed down explanation of it, of course, because I'm not an astrophysicist by any means, but I just thought it was really cool and I wanted to share it with you guys. Star Wars Battlefront came out this week. I pre-ordered it, of course, and I absolutely love it. Do I have a little bias because it's Star Wars? Probably. But if you like Call of Duty and, you know, other first-person shooters like that, then even kind of a Halo type style, they have some experience, but it's a really fun game. I'm not good at it. My KD is... I'd say a solid 0.75, not even 1. Yeah, I know, noob status over here. But I enjoy the game a lot. It's got a lot of different aspects that most of your first-person shooters don't have. I mean, you can be a Jedi, or you can be a bounty hunter with special power-ups. You can fly planes. You can drive walker, or well, AT-ATs and ATSTs and stuff. Okay, I know for any of you crazy fans out there, they are AT-ATs. They don't call them AT-ATs, but I call them AT-ATs because I'm lazy and it's easier. But anyway, so back to my point. It's a great game. I thought about streaming on Twitch a couple times when I was playing it, but then I realized I'm not so sure that like you want to watch me die 47 times. But, I mean, you'll get to hear me while I die 47 times, which may be entertaining for you. I don't know. I don't think I'll do it anytime soon. I may want to get a little bit better just so that I can have that, if you're watching it, not to listen to me ramble on, but watching it to actually watch the game being played. I have at least a little bit of appeal for people that want it for that. But, on the other hand, if you have PS4 and you have Star Wars Battlefront, and you would like to play together, reach out to me on Twitter, email, Facebook, wherever, what have you, and we'll get together and play the game sometime. So before I wrap the show up, I've got an app review, of course. The app that I'm reviewing this week is called City 2048. And so basically what it is you have this 4x4 square that has, you know, the little mini squares in it. And on the squares are different types of properties. So you start out with the littlest level, which is just some trees. You combine the two trees, it turns into like it turns into one house. You combine two one houses, it turns into a little like duplex style type thing. You combine two of the duplex style type things, you get an apartment complex, and so on and so forth until you get skyscrapers. And you've got to keep combining and building your way up. And I'm not sure that the game ever ends. I've gotten pretty far on it. I've put quite a bit of time into it. And of course, eventually you're going to lose. You just kind of run out of options. You can't combine anything, and then the game ends. But I'm not sure that it has an end to it, was the whole point of that, of course. It's a fun game, but download it with caution because it's pretty addictive. Like, I sat down, a few days ago, and I was like, I'm just going to play this for like 5 minutes. And, I really got into it and was trying to get as far as I could. And next thing I know, I look at the clock and like 20 minutes had passed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that did not even seem like that long. So it's a time waster for sure, but you might inadvertently waste too much time on accident. But definitely check it out if you're into those kind of puzzle brain teaser style games. If you enjoyed the show, please show me some love by liking, thumbs up, subscribe, share, rate, review, retweet, or whatever it is that's used to symbolize the love of the show on the platform you're using to view it. I would really, really, really appreciate the rating and reviewing on iTunes. That'll help the show come up when people are looking for new podcasts, and that's one of the best ways that I can market the show to new listeners for free. Additionally, when you guys share it or recommend it to friends, that is another big, huge way that you can really support the show and that I can build an audience, because you guys are the best. And every new person that talks to me about the show, it's amazing and it means so much to me. And I can't even express what I feel when that happens. It's just pure joy and bliss. And so if you can share the show, do it, and let's bring more people into the fold. You can follow me on Twitter at JohnnyM_Revo. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/JustJohnPodcast. If you want to see a really ridiculously amazing website, of course, you can go to justjohnpodcast.wordpress.com. You can listen to the show, if you didn't already know, at soundcloud.com/justjohn-podcast or at youtube.com/JFMedina2010. You can also search for the Just John Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. You can email the show at justjohnpodcast@gmail.com. And remember, without you, I'm just some dude talking to himself on the internet. Until next time, peace out, fam.